Is there anybody who was going to come who can't make it?
Sandra Bogle and still making it.
Sandra and Seth?
Has everybody got a copy of minutes and agenda?
Do you want to give John's apologies?
I shall, yes.
Yeah, okay.
John in his society.
Yeah. And we, as ever, we wish John, well. You know, he's been struggling with himself. Okay, let's do a quick round the table. Hello, everybody. I'm Nick.
Geraldine Stanford.
Still Geraldine Stanford, just like last.
Anthony Hopkins to the Library's Heritage and Adult Education.
Normal Plus 2, Wimbledon Museum and Wimbledon Society.
Tyndale Conservation Officer.
Alison.
London
Don't know milky.
Alison Plant, Project Manager for the Canons in Mitcham.
I'm Shimko, Community Engagement Officer for the Canons in Mitcham.
John Hawkes, Merton.TV Trust, among other things.
Alison Cousins, John in his society.
So that means Nicholas Hart, Ronald Dutch Museum.
Level Squires, I'm just a volunteer for various things, but my main interest is in historic ecology, historic trees.
There's no such thing as just.
So I'm Tony Burton from Mitcham Cricket Green Community and Heritage and Morden Valley Forum.
Councillor Najib Latif from Wimbledon Village and Vice Chair of the Planning Committee.
John Davis, Friends of the Canons and Tree Wardens Group, Merton.
Dickie Wilkinson, Councillor Dickie Wilkinson, Merton Park Ward, Independence.
John Henry Policy Award.
I'm Sarah Gould, I'm the Heritage Officer for the Council.
Right. Okay. So we're going to rush through this tonight because we've got to be finished by 8:30. The library specifically asked. First of all, Canons update.
Right.
You have the floor.
Shall I go? I'll go
Yeah,
first.
you go first.
We are out to tender. It's going well. We've finished the standard questionnaire, and we've had 5 tender returns that are through to the next stage, the invitation to tender for the building contract, and we've got 4 returns that have gone to the invitation to tender for the landscape contract, and 1 contractor is tendering for both contracts. And the quality of them is very good, so we're hoping that they all return their tenders. So that's where we are with the project. I'm just seeking approval to ensure that it doesn't need to go to CMT and LSG, so that the ITT programme means that we can start on site in February next year. So, fingers crossed, we should get permission for that, so that we can go to Cabinet in January.
Fantastic.
Just whilst we have somebody who's interested in ecology here, we went to a conference last week, an interpretation conference, and I'm very keen in progressing the arboretum, the mini arboretum at the Canons, and so I would be interested in speaking at some point, exchanging details. But yeah, it's going well.
As far as an update from me, hopefully if you're interested in the Canons, you've seen the Canons website or our Instagram or our Facebook, or signed up to our newsletter, which is the best way to find out about activities and events. We participated in Mitcham Heritage Day, which I'm sure most of you were also involved with. I brought along some of the short archaeology reports. We did an archaeological dig in May. If anyone's interested, the full-length report is available on the website. That's about 60 pages. But if you want the real in-depth findings from the archaeology dig, that's there. But please take these away with you. Upcoming, we have a reminiscence project. If anyone's interested in oral history, grew up in Mitcham, so that's an intergenerational project, which is about engaging young people in Mitcham, so 13 to 20, to do oral reminiscence work with older residents who have memories growing up in Mitcham in the 40s, 50s and 60s. So we're doing that in partnership with Cllr Futures, so they're funding half that project, which is great. So if you're only young people or you're only older people who would like to get involved, I've brought along those flyers as well. So please do take some away with you. If you have anyone you'd like to take those to you, those are the two. Yeah, please do take these. The orange ones are for young people, and the grey ones are for old people.
Are these for very old people?
Yeah, have one of each.
More heritage colours versus excitement colours, apparently, was the thinking. But do take them away. Do take them away. Do share them with your own societies. Even if people in Wimbledon may have grown up in Mitcham, so do share them broadly, or out of the borough for that matter. People live all over the place now, so please do take these away. Those are the two big projects coming up in the next between now and Christmas. After Christmas, we are continuing with our heritage lessons. So I know John and I have worked a little bit on that at Merton Priory, but we're developing these heritage lessons for children in Mitcham. So we will then be trialling that with more teachers after Christmas, which will be great, starting in Mitcham, of course, and then we could go wider. And then when we have the contract for the capital works, we'll be able to have a program of activities in those capital works. So visit the house while it's under construction, visit the landscape while it's under construction. But until they're in place, I won't be able to book those. But I should have those next after Christmas sometime, hopefully, as Alison said, starting in February. Other than that, we're out of tender for the interpretation contract, which is really exciting. That closes on the 23rd of October, so we'll hopefully get some really exciting bids there. So that will be about both the kind of static permanent interpretation at the Canons, as well as a set of workshops with the community run by our interpretation planners, which again, as soon as they're in place, we'll be able to put those dates in the diary, and I'll be able to share those with Sarah and Future Heritage Forum. So do just follow us on social media or online, or we try and put our stuff out in other places, MBSC, send it to Mitcham Cricket Green. So do keep an eye on all those places if you're interested in the engagement side of everything at the Canons. I think that's a good quick run through.
Thank you very much.
I can send you
Both of you,
everything.
very succinct, and yes.
Yes, that's the majority of the events and activities.
Questions? Quick questions for Alison Hannah. Nobody?
Well,
Yeah, go on.
Sarah, are you going to be publicising these through?
I can do, yes.
Yeah, so we
So it doesn't start till next month, so we're just...
so that I can whiz them round.
Yeah, and I can send them by email to anyone who would like a digital copy as well, and they should be on the website. So.
I've got to say, this is a tremendous initiative, and obviously one of the big things that you do is you keep interest going, while Alison does all the hard driving heavy stuff, because your stuff it's difficult, isn't it? And it takes time, and we've got to allow ourselves time, but we've got to keep local people interested in what's going on at the same time.
Yes,
I think you've both done a fabulous job.
It's hard when nothing happens for a long time, so it's good to.
Indeed. Right, okay, if there's no other questions for Alison and Hannah, I'm going to move the item 5 actually up to item 2, if that's all right, because I think this is quite key. This is about the actual future of the Heritage Forum itself, because we are going to need to make some changes for it. So Anthony, you have the floor.
Okay, so just purpose that it's item 4, so it's a Heritage Forum item. So what we're just discussing tonight is, so the Heritage Forum was formed in 2012, and it's largely being facilitated kind of jointly between various departments of the council, and mainly council-led. Particularly over the last 5 years, 4 to be precise, we launched our heritage strategy, and we've been monitoring and managing kind of a lot of the activities of the forum through the kind of key objectives and delivery plan of the strategy. The strategy is shortly due to expire next year. And we're in the process of starting to think about the follow-up to the strategy and what that will look like in the future. I think one of the things which we've been quite conscious of with the forum is that it has still retained to be quite try to encourage as much items on the agenda and input from the community. But that hasn't always come through some of the agenda items, and particularly for Sarah as our one heritage officer for the council, a lot of the constraints and challenges have fallen on her in terms of bringing together the agendas and presenting on a number of items. Also within that time as well, the actual capacity that was put into the Heritage Forum has depleted, so whereas it was a kind of a co-run forum with colleagues from another part of the council, it's now just led by Sarah. And we feel that now is probably an opportunity with the strategy, the refresh of the strategy, and looking forward to next year, about looking at a different model for the forum. Obviously we used to meet 4 times a year, we're now down to two a year. We probably haven't quite achieved what we'd aimed to do in terms of widening out the capacity and participation within the forum. And we feel that now is probably a good opportunity to speak to members and to participants in the forum about how that forum could look differently in the future, and potentially with less of a council input into it, and more just a kind of administered approach which calls on the community to come forward and bring more of the agenda items and do some more the kind of operational arrangements. So it's just a kind of an introductory start around that. I think the other thing I would emphasise about capacity is it's not getting any easier for the teams, it's not getting any easier for the departments. So in terms of us being able to commit to this ongoing, that is a challenge. So we really wanted to kind of use this time as an opportunity to have some discussions around how that forum could look going forward, if it is still a forum, or is there other ways that we can keep that communication flowing that isn't necessarily in the same structure as it is at the moment. I don't know if you want to
yes.
add anything else.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, we heard at the weekend that we thought that we were going to have a tough time of it this year. I mean, this is talking from the council generally. It's being filmed, so it might as well be. That we'd have to make about £1 million worth of cuts this year. 1.3, I think it's supposed to be. It's actually, since Sajid Javid's announcements the other day, likely to be 4 times that, which is terrifying. It is absolutely terrifying. And we will need to make savings, I hate to use the word cuts, but savings everywhere and anywhere that we can. So a meeting like this, although in terms of, you know, officer time, etc., is relatively small, it still has a cost to it, and things like this will need to be looked at very hard in terms of what we can actually achieve with them. And that gives me as I'm sure you know me around the table, it gives me absolutely no pleasure at all to say this. It doesn't mean to say that we are less engaged with heritage. It doesn't mean to say that we're less passionate about heritage. I mean, we are incredibly lucky, frankly, to have Sarah with us as the kind of focal point of what we want to achieve. But, you know, listening about, you know, to the Canons project there, you know, this is the kind of way in which we've shown that we are passionate about heritage, that we do want to keep heritage going in Merton. But we just, I don't think, we'll be able to do it from the point of view of the Heritage Forum in the format that we've done it over the last few years. I think you could look at it as an opportunity rather than a body blow or anything like that. You look at who you've got around the table here tonight, and councillors, stick your hands up. So 5 councillors from a meeting of, I know, 15, 20, whatever. And if you think about it, that's a remarkably high percentage when you take the officers out of it as well. Are we talking to ourselves, or are we really talking to you, and when I say you, I'm looking at the people who get the work done. You know, when Neville said, "I'm just a volunteer," hey, it's not just about just being a volunteer. The people around this table have worked incredibly hard, but and will continue to work incredibly hard. But I want you people, in particular, to have a control, which we're not going to be able to come back from the council, because the council won't be able to help a vast amount. But I want you to have more of that input into what you want to achieve. So I'll leave it at that. Who wants to talk first?
Okay.
I saw Nick.
Yeah.
Nick first.
You're probably going to say the same thing as me, or
Probably.
but in much better words.
2012 was the division of the old CADAP between this group and the architects, much better word. I can't remember what their group's called now. But up until then, I always saw the old CADAP group as the consultation group where the council got to know what the wider interested community thought about various council-led projects, and for the wider community to let the council know if they were missing something somewhere. For this to become a member-led group, suddenly that element seems to disappear, and I would be very worried it being a member-led group where the council wasn't bringing to it the things that the council needed to consult on about the way it was treating its heritage assets.
It's heritage assets.
That's the main, it's a Merton Heritage Forum is what this one is.
Yes, exactly.
So it's its heritage assets specifically. I mean, there are all sorts of minor things that the expertise around this table can bring to your attention wouldn't otherwise be available to the officers. And equally, the officers know what's going on and we don't. And there is a need for it to be a two-way meeting, whether you call it a forum or not.
Okay. John,
I was really going to make the same point, but in different words, so I won't repeat.
Oh, all right.
Okay. There are fora and fora. We have the leader of the Wanderers Forum at the end of the table, for example, and there are, where one stops and the next one begins. It is tricky, but I would be very worried if this was not I don't mean a council-led, I don't mean a council-sponsored, but with no council input or exchange, then there's hardly any point in just the heritage individuals getting together, unless it's in another forum like the Wanderers Valley Forum. I didn't quite understand what you were saying there, Nick, because you started by saying the forum is something that you will have to be looking at economising on.
Yeah.
And you're saying actually the presence of officers and what they do, writing minutes and whatever, summoning the meeting, is not a very great expense. Is that what you're saying the expense is?
That's basically the expense.
Yeah, so you're basically saying a meeting, holding a meeting twice a year has to go because it's too expensive.
No, not holding a meeting twice a year has got to go, but holding the meeting as we have it at the moment.
Well, the one we got at the moment. I mean, I'm just asking, but that's what you mean.
Yeah,
what else is the forum?
It is exactly
You're
that.
talking about the future of the forum, and you're talking really about the future of 2 meetings a year.
It has a cost. It has a cost, and it's not just 2 meetings a year.
But is it that you want to just sort of prune it in order to show that you are cost saving? I mean, or would you rather that it was held somewhere else that wasn't a council premises?
What I'm interested in doing, sorry to interrupt you, but what I'm interested in doing is making sure that there's still a voice for Merton heritage, which is, as I always hoped this would be, led by the people of Merton. As you know, I mean, I've always wanted to have this site more opened up than it actually is, but it hasn't been CADAP for a very, very long time. It was never going to be CADAP, the idea of being an alternative to what's it called? What's the the architects.
Design and review.
The DRP. Yeah. There's an element of sort of redundancy in having two meetings looking at the same thing anyway. And I appreciate the pardon? No, they don't. That's the whole. But we go because we don't have to do it in this meeting. That's right. But there was an element of that in the past. This is purely to look after our heritage assets, how we're going to promote them, how we're going to protect them. This is what this is my passion, and what is done around the table is in many ways quite extraordinary. But I'm just sort of saying that I don't know whether this format, I know that this format isn't going to work anymore because it does have a cost to it, and we can't afford that cost.
Well, I think
we make some extraordinary scrimping.
You're saying the cost isn't justified by the achievement or the outcome of such a meeting. I mean, I think we probably all agree that this is simply an exchange of, it's a gathering of people who, as you kind of put it, do the work, and an exchange of news and views by those people, which could take place at any time with any
it could
in any circumstance. But, I mean, the outcome of these meetings, to be perfectly honest, is a beautifully written set of minutes by Sarah. Not an awful lot. Not an awful lot more than that. Because we all get on doing the things we're doing anyway. I don't think any of us have a great influence on whatever else the rest of us are doing. So I mean, this is an extremely pleasant social occasion, and it's very nice to hear what other people are doing, but it's not necessary.
John, I think you just said what I think so much fun. Do you want to swap?
No, you couldn't afford me.
Right. Thank you. Anybody else got any views on this particular, this moment in time? Tony, I bet you have.
Well, just I mean, even in the conversation we're having, I think the clarity of what the purpose of the, as it were, the assembled mass is. So we've heard, I think, three purposes even in that exchange. One, effectively a champion of heritage in Merton, which I think is what you're looking for, Nick. We've heard a desire to be able to hold the council to account and to have access to the council around its sort of management of heritage assets. And we've heard the classic, information exchange, hear what's going on. And I guess the issue is, we could probably come up with others, but there are three fairly good ones. What is it that's needed? Is any of that essential? What if the usual? If you didn't have it, would you reinvent it? And what's the most important within that? Certainly, I think there have been some practical issues around the council. The local list conversations and others have been really useful and important sort of staging posts in a process, bringing things together which sort of fit into a wider process. There are not that many, and the heritage strategy, I think, has sort of singularly failed to really bite on the rest of the council, and probably bite on many of us as well. But it was of its time, and it was a good punt of its time, but it didn't sort of get the resources behind it to really bring it to life, but it could have done. If we shut up shop today, will there be a vacuum that needs to be filled?
And could I sort of jump in about, I mean, for example, one of the, perhaps a much more significant event than the two meetings we have this year is Sarah's Discovery Day. Is that also going out of the window?
No, not in my
Well, I mean, that is a much more expensive thing to put on. It's a much more active piece of council activity. It is a heritage, it's a tremendous heritage banner to wave. I don't think, I mean, I'd far rather sort of keep that and never see you all again. Because we all meet there anyway, it's in exactly the same place.
It's a very, very good point. I hadn't even thought about it. What do you reckon?
Well, I mean, you don't.
No, I mean, we are still committed to doing the Heritage Discovery Days and the events and the activities that we've programmed out. I think some of the things that have just been raised around accountability, well, in terms of what accountability this forum sits on, it's purely kind of advisory commentary anyway. It doesn't replace any of what are you know, elected committees and decision-making processes. They will continue on as they are. I think the thing I've picked up in particular is that the information sharing is the thing that we really value, or what seems to be coming through is the information sharing, and there are probably more economical ways that we could do that. That
yes,
involve these kind of meeting structures, you know, and I think we could look at something around that that's maybe a little bit less intensive on an officer perspective. And obviously, it's not. We're not saying that, you know, if there are important things that need to come forward and we discuss, of course we'll continue to do that. I think we're just really quite keen to look at different ways that maybe bring new people in as well, but also give that opportunity to just reduce the administrative burden side and actually increase the value around the discussions and the information that we do share. And I think there's ways that we could do that, which means that we can still meet, but just not necessarily in this kind of structured forum. Let me just, you know, maybe have a half-yearly information sharing session, which you know, would probably achieve the same spirit of what this meeting is about anyway, but just in a more economical way.
Chair, speaking as one extremely long in the tooth, I mean, I've been going to meetings like this for 30 years, long before this forum was convened. The previous incarnation of the Wander Forum, of course, was exactly that. We got it was the same groups who got together to exchange information, but there was also the additional sort of function which grew of holding the council and performance generally to account, and particularly in the area of, for example, planning issues, which the Wander Forum discussed, and of course still does. But I mean, that's another parallel group that's all happening, although it's not as it is a much more tightly knit group at present. But I don't see that. I think as long as the Heritage Day happens,
the Heritage Day will happen.
Then these groups are going to get together and talk to each other.
He said on
Anyway,
the Heritage Day will happen. There's two things that I picked out on this, which are really important. I mean, first of all, yes, it's almost a social information sharing thing. But Tony is right. You're right. Nicholas, you're right. Holding the council to account. We need to find a way in which we can do that. And there are obviously ways, the conventional ways of doing so. You know, council meetings, etc., where that's open. But if anybody has other ways in which they feel that they could channel the views of the community, not necessarily the views of the individual, but the views of the community, to the council, and in the expectation of getting response and, where necessary, change. I don't particularly want to hear them now because you'll be doing it off the cuff, if you like, but I do want to hear them. So we're not saying goodbye to the whole idea of the Heritage Forum. We just need, as Anthony's just said, doing it in a slightly different way. Can I
ask
move?
one question
Yeah,
to go with that? What's one of the threads that would definitely come out of this kind of discussion is, would an online forum be a better bet? Because it's there, it's all the time. You don't have formal meetings, it's up there. But I would think that would need serious costings, because my experience of online forum is that it's actually quite expensive in terms of who does it and when it's done and how often it's done. Unless someone's on it all the time, it collapses almost immediately.
Okay.
The costing of an online version, I think, would be a multiple of the costing of these meetings.
Yes. Oh, it would, yes.
But the online one is the only one that immediately comes to mind as even remotely covering what this one does.
It depends on what you mean by an online forum. My mother-in-law, for instance, is extremely unwell at the moment, and so we have grandma care updates on WhatsApp. And I can assure you there's a hell of a lot of exchange of opinions goes on. Guess how much it costs the family? Well,
Zero.
probably in terms of, they're all finding out information about us and going to try and sell us cigarettes and stuff as a result. But apart from that, it actually costing us nothing at all.
But grading up from that to one where there's multiple people, multiple interest and accountability is a huge jump. It's not a minor increase.
I do appreciate that if you're going to have formal accountability, I don't think, quite frankly, that a forum like a WhatsApp group, just throwing that one out there. I'm not saying that's exactly how you necessarily need to do it, but I don't think it would take a lot of doing, because basically you're looking either at echo chamber, which is just echo chamber, or you're looking at serious questions, and those serious questions will come to the surface, and those serious questions somebody from the WhatsApp group could actually put into a letter or something like that and send to the relevant officer. It's been done before, it can be done again. The one thing that I would say, in all honesty, I've been chair now for, well, I'm almost as long in the tooth as John. We don't really, I've never sat, it's been a long time since I've sat here squirming, thinking, I wish they weren't asking me these questions. And that's what really holding the council to account. It's making us feel ever so slightly uncomfortable about what we're doing, which I've always been in favour of. But this meeting isn't doing that. In fact, if you take this away, think of ways in which you'd want to engage. You might actually achieve what we're not achieving at the moment.
I honestly, I mean, just for myself, and this is, I want to say to you, Nick, that you've been our sort of friend at court. I mean, if I had a problem that I thought the council should know about, the first person I emailed is you.
Yeah.
That's a very useful sort of in. I might email poor Sarah, but she's got enough to do already.
Yeah.
She's fed up with the sound of my voice. But or Anthony or whoever. But this at least is that we feel that there's somebody whom we can refer a heritage matter to, and there's also a kind of osmosis going on here. I mean, Hannah and I wouldn't have got together, not that we have very much, but we are planning to do so, I think, unless there had been an introduction through one or another person here, and that sort of thing. And I don't know, Tony is much the best person to talk about fora generally, because you have for the One Valley Forum, you have a very precise brief and a very precise constitution and purpose.
Tony's very good at that sort of thing.
Yeah, but the One Valley Forum and the other parallel, I guess, would be the Independent Merton Green Spaces Forum, which is being kind of the friends groups, and but they are fundamentally independent, and their sort of starting point is they're independent organisations. So yeah, they hold feet to fire and they do that, but they do that in a more sort of overt sort of way. This is a more collaborative model than that.
Yes.
And it's the friend in court, sort of heritage champion kind of approach, which has its role. There's no doubt that has a role as well. The Independent Merton Heritage Forum would give you a different sort of grief, and it wouldn't be quite the same sort of thing.
Yes, there are things we don't say in this council-sponsored forum, and the two departments really are planning issues and officers not having got things done which we think they ought to have done 2 years ago, and those are my two beefs. And but I do sort of the planning issue is taken care of, I think, by the One Valley Forum, or that's one of our sort of beliefs there. And the other issue is there are many ways of applying pressure, but.
I take the point about making sure the officers do what they're, we're so few officers now that it's actually really easy to keep tabs on who's doing what, because you're either doing it or you are. Let's face it,
Jill, basically.
Nick, sorry,
Yeah,
Jeff, if I can introduce a small moment of levity in it, or whatever.
You've been left so far.
There is a television ad at the moment for this Sensodyne toothpaste, and with a dentist saying, "Why have you come here? My tooth started hurting." Well, didn't the Sensodyne work? Yes, it did, but I stopped using it. Well, use it again. And I feel like this group is exactly that. Your feeling of comfort here is a byproduct of how well things move.
Oh, I'm almost prepared to take that as a compliment.
You're too nice, Nicholas.
But
Right.
I believe it's doing its job. If you stop doing it, a void will appear, and then you'll say, well, why did we stop doing it?
You have a point. You have a point. I'm afraid it's going to be one of those let's suck it and see moments. I don't think that's an advert, but anyway. Let's leave it at that for a moment. I think things... Sorry.
Can I just make a comment? Your suggestion of WhatsApp group, and I know you're not necessarily suggesting a WhatsApp group. If one of your thoughts is to expand the group, whatever you decide to do has got to be something that's visible in the community and to the public. Otherwise, it will become a closed thing and it won't expand and nobody will know about it. It's just an observation from the conversation.
Thank you very much indeed. I mean, there are there's Facebook groups which are, there's Collinswood Facebook group, there's the Morden Facebook group, and those are very widespread. They have, WhatsApp, you're right, is usually much smaller. But anyway, it's one of the ways. Thank you very much, Betty. Unless there's anybody coming up with something new on this, I'd like us to move on because we have to get out of here by 8:30 tonight. So,
is this the last one then?
I've no idea.
There's a date on the website for the next one.
Probably in this format. But we'll keep you up to date. Right. Mitcham Heritage Day, Tony.
Yeah, in the spirit of community items on the agenda, I thought it would be an opportunity to just update people, and please, if you haven't seen the leaflet that was put around, then there's copies here if you want to pass those round, which is another very successful celebration of all things heritage in Mitcham. We have more entrants this year than ever before, including the golf club, which has an extraordinary heritage. I thought I knew some of it, but I discovered a lot more of it, and remarkable sort of personalities in its history, including the first female professional golfer and other things. Melanie Walks, Mitcham History Nuggets, and a really successful first opening of Mary Tate Cottages, which was extraordinarily successful, and people just loved going around and looking, particularly in the, I suppose, the cultivated area, let's call it that, at the back. It was a really important piece of green space. Chance to celebrate lots of anniversaries, 50th anniversary of Mitcham Cricket Green Conservation Area. We're still going to bang on about that one until the end of the year. 190th anniversary of Mary Tate Cottages, 200th anniversary of the parish church, and there was a celebration cricket match 100 years after it was previously played against the Australian Imperial Forces touring team, and the Australians won again in the cricket match. And we're still gathering attendance figures, always a challenge to get people to count people and then send it in, but over 700 visits, so really successful. And our thanks to Sarah for the 3 exhibitions which were provided from here, which went down store.
Great. Questions about the Heritage Day?
Just a comment, it was so busy on the bit that I was doing that I didn't have a chance to look at the others, and I was going to.
We did get complaints that there was too much and you couldn't do it all in a day, but I take that as a positive.
I think that's a real positive. I mean, my only complaint is because of the things that's been happening to me, I wasn't able to get there. Will any of the councillors go there at all?
I went and I really enjoyed. Not only that, I went and for the first time a game of bowling.
Excellent.
But what I noticed around the bowling footpath, need to do a bit of work because it's very, for me, it could be very dangerous because the broken pavement. So I just want to find out who is responsible for that area.
Well, I'd early, I guess.
So we need to speak.
Yeah, we'll talk about that one.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Anybody else on the Heritage Day? Well, thank you very much, Tony. That's great. We're getting through this at a normal rate, you know, that's great. Don't let us down, Sarah, you're next. Merton Memory Bank and Common Sense Projects.
Right, okay. This, some of you will have had, sorry, I've been deluging everybody with emails recently, so my apologies for that. So you will have had a bit of sort of information about this, some of you already, but it's just to let you know that the Heritage Service has very kindly been given some funding through sort of some health funding, I should say, to start 2 projects. These actually have to be, the sort of organisation and the first stages of them actually have to be completed by March of next year. But the aim is that the actual sort of services that are produced will be ongoing. So there are 2 projects, the Merton actually are linked, or certainly have common ground, and they will be based within this service. So you have the Merton Memory Bank project, which aims to increase opportunities for heritage engagement and also to provide a range of sort of resources and activities and support work for people living with dementia. So that would involve a range of different things. This, as with all our other projects, this will obviously involve hefty volunteer recruitment, so I'm relying on all of you to spread the word and encourage people to participate. So Merton Memory Bank will involve a few different things, one of which will be creating part of our space and redecoration and organisation of various equipment and so forth to make it dementia friendly and to create a sort of small scale reminiscence zone, which could be sort of flexible either for sort of small scale groups and dementia cafes or for sort of larger themed reminiscence sessions. The Dementia Hub and Alzheimer's Societies, I'm sure a lot of you are aware, actually do some amazing work already with things like dementia cafes in various parts of the borough. There's actually less services in this part of the borough, which is partly what we want to address. We'll also be looking to collect various materials to create themed memory boxes, so combinations of sensory material, handling objects, photographs, so on and so forth, to help trigger particular memories, and also to make members of the community who are living with dementia feel valued, as well as sort of participants in events, that we are actually recording their memories for posterity that can go into other sort of exhibitions and educational resources and so forth. We'll also be staging a range of sort of heritage-themed craft activities and so forth. There'll be a range of different reminiscence sessions, including some pilot sessions that are actually staged before March. The other project, and we will also be producing a sort of sensory display that's linked between the 2 projects. The Common Sense project has a sort of common theme, so that's increasing heritage engagement and access to the sort of heritage collection, but that's aimed more at people with various sort of special needs. So primarily in the first instance visual impairments or hearing loss, but also looking to provide support and activities for adults on the autistic spectrum. So again, the sort of space that we're using with the sort of flexible space that we're creating, which can be used for reminiscence work, can also be used to create a sort of chill out zone if people come in, and it's sort of, because things can be quite overwhelming sometimes, for anybody frankly, but particularly if you're suffering from autism, sometimes you need a sort of calm space where you can just sort of capture your thoughts and sort of interact with various things on a sort of one-to-one basis. So with that we will be producing a range of different guided tours. Some of those will be sort of signed tours for people who have hearing loss. We'll also be looking at producing sensory tours to allow people access to our collection for people that have sort of visual impairments, and a sort of sensory exhibition which is open to all but obviously has particular benefits for people with those sort of special needs. We'll also be looking to actually create, we'll have a range of sort of sensory packs that can be used by adult individuals here. We'll also be looking to create a range of heritage-themed activity boxes which can go out to care homes and residential units with sort of very simple, clear-cut heritage-themed activities that people can do in an environment with which they're already familiar and with staff with whom they're already familiar, because obviously coming into a large open space, stairs and lifts are not a sort of ideal scenario for many adults on the autistic spectrum. So taking goods to them to enable them to engage with local heritage in a familiar environment seems to be a way of addressing that. And we'll also be working to install various additional IT, sort of touch screens hopefully, which will enable us to provide many more sort of displays than our static display space currently allows, but in a variety of sort of formats. So that could be subtitled, there could be sort of additional sort of ways of actually providing access to the material within our collection. And we have a project officer called Dorian Knight, who some of you may have already had emails from. He's working with me until March, the end of March of next year, to sort of devise these various different projects and resources. And we're also, as I say, very keen to recruit members of the local community to sort of assist with the work that we're doing. And we're at the moment also engaging with a range of local care homes, support groups and sort of stakeholder groups to actually get feedback from them about the various things that we're suggesting, because obviously it's one thing for me to sit and say, this is a great idea and we're providing you with this, but if it's not actually what people want, it's not going to be very sort of practical. So we're looking to get sort of feedback from members of the sort of, the target audience that we're aiming at as well, to actually help shape the activities and projects we put together.
Tremendous, thank you very much. Questions?
Sarah, yes, could you just clarify what it is that you're asking? I have had your emails about the volunteers. What it is that you're asking them, what kind of activities? Because I thought it was actually dealing with
the different sort of activities that they'll be involved with. I would say from the outset they will all be given training, so they'll be trained as dementia friends, they'll have visual awareness training, deaf awareness training, training in autism support, local history research and that sort of thing. So there'll be a mixture of work that will be involved. Some of it will be researching and producing some of the sort of displays, whether that's the material that goes onto the interactive devices or the actual exhibitions. Also they'll be involved, which looks actually potentially for volunteer quite a nice activity, in sort of sourcing some of the materials that will actually go into sort of themed memory boxes, and also helping to devise the craft activities and some of the sort of activity boxes that will go out to residential units. We could also do with assistance with things like sort of promotion and outreach work, liaising with sort of care homes and that sort of thing, and helping us to sort of plan and stage the various sort of tours of our facility, which will be in different sort of accessible formats. But they will be given support and training and everything.
Joan?
And when are you hoping to start this?
Well, the projects itself are starting now. Obviously, we've got a very tight time scale because that's linked to the funding, I'm afraid, in terms of the initial sort of setup. But what I'm particularly keen to ensure is, particularly for these sort of target groups, you can't, well, I personally think you can't set things up and set an expectation and create a new service and then say, we've done this for 3 months, now the funding's finished, it's gone. So we are looking to actually develop a sort of core team of volunteers who will carry on working with myself and my existing voluntary team to sort of carry on doing this particular work. And the initial sort of events and activities and sort of pilot workshops we're looking to stage between sort of February and March next year.
And that's something you're hoping for to take out into the community, like for instance in my ward, Palazzo River, Pavlov's Community Centre. Is it something you're looking forward to take out, or just want it to remain?
This, to be honest, this is something my colleague and I were actually discussing today. In the sort of framing of the project, the initial framing of the project is basically activities, apart from the activities for autistic adults, are basically focused here. I already go out and deliver sort of reminiscence sessions to various sort of care homes and different sort of service providers, which I can continue to do. But one of the things that we would look at doing really as a sort of developmental aspect of this project would be what we could actually, evolve into something that we can take out with voluntary support as well into the sort of community as well. Thank you.
I was going to say something actually on this. As far as the dementia-friendly stuff is concerned, 1 in 3 of us is likely to end up with dementia. So it's a really it's the disease. It's called a disease which affects older people. But the interesting thing is, of course, that means that 2 in 3 of us won't. But just because of that, the 2 in 3 that won't, doesn't mean to say this isn't a service which is useful to both. My dad did a job of dying over the summer, and I kind of collated all his photo albums from years and years and years, and the amount of joy that he got out of just looking at those things and interacting, and it brings the conversation out and things like that. And it's not difficult, in terms of volunteering. It's probably almost a joyful, or it is a joyful activity actually. So it's something I thoroughly recommend. I think it's really, really, really useful. I've got to say, for autism, which I've got quite a lot of experience of, it is more complicated, but just because it's more complicated, given what we're talking about the cutter coming down again, the role for the community becomes even more important. I think with autism you need a lot of training, with visual aware and hearing. You need lots of training as well, but it doesn't mean to say that we go leave it to the professionals, because the professionals is a finite resource. We as the community, we're also finite, but rather less so. And so it's both of these. It's a clarion call, if you like. It's a clarion call. Just because it's being done this way now, and we are following the money, aren't we, to a certain extent, doesn't mean to say that we can always do that, but it doesn't mean to say as well that these services won't be needed. And so it's fantastic. It's fantastic that we're getting this.
I mean, I think two things to just to very quickly sort of respond to that. Entirely correct about the age aspect of it, but I do think it's worth pointing out that actually increasing numbers of younger people, as in people in their late 40s and 50s, are developing various forms of dementia.
I wouldn't disagree. I wouldn't disagree.
And the other thing is, we can't necessarily do things on a huge scale, but this is meant to be, following on from what you were saying, also, support services to a certain extent for carers as well, for people, from those target audiences as well, because, when we're doing sort of reminiscent sessions, it's not just, the person living with dementia that we're inviting to come along, it's the family member, the carer of whatever description, and that's something that's done very effectively by the Dementia Hub and the Alzheimer's Society, and that's what we're very keen to do.
Fantastic, fantastic. Questions? Any further questions on that one? Well, there we go, we're rattling through this. Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you very much. Really exciting, that is. Then, the next person is Jill, and the local list.
Okay, well that's all out to consultation at the moment. I'm just going to put it onto the website, which hopefully will be within the next week. This seems its own difficult obstacles. We made it harder. So that's fine. I have got other things, this heritage things, because Sarah sent out this piece of paper, and I've noted it. Can I pick up on those now?
Well, that's something for you to send to me, as opposed to from a sort of forum perspective. This is just to sort of clarify. In the first instance, this is just to sort of to clarify for people who don't know about the piece of paper waving. I sent an email out to various of the organisations around the table that have actually sort of contributed or are down as sort of contact people for particular activities or sort of pieces of work in the action plan of the heritage strategy, which, as Nick and Anthony mentioned, is due to sort of be reviewed from next year. So I've just, at this stage, I've just asked everybody to sort of send me an update of where things stand with the various items that have been put into that plan. It's basically just because, as part of, if you remember from the sort of existing one, sorry to interrupt you, there's a sort of small summarising section where we say what's actually been achieved, so it's really to help me with that aspect of it.
All right, so I won't address those things, but I will address Sunnyside Substation, because I have one or two people interested in that. We actually established ownership of it by the electrical whatever, and they're going to paint it, but they're not going to fix it. So we still have an issue about mending it, and that we need to raise some money for the actual fixing of it.
Who needs to raise the money?
Well, the Women's Society were talking about it at one stage.
Well, look, I said I'd got £5,000.
Yes.
Fabulous.
And
How much would it cost to repair it?
I have no idea, because we haven't actually costed that. I thought this electrical people were going to do the whole job, and then it turned out no. They've done a lot of research about paint, had it analysed, and done all sorts of wonderful things. But I said, well, it's not just about painting, and they said, oh. So I think.
Right. So there's still some work to do on it, basically.
Yes, yes.
But are you going to send it back to them and say, no, what we actually wanted was this?
Well, I think we might be pushing our luck a bit.
I don't mind. You push.
But I have already asked them.
So who actually are we talking about?
It escapes me the name, but it's like the overall electrical whatever that supplies electricity to the all of Britain.
Veolia, no, not Veolia. I mean, NEB, whatever.
It's all been privatised.
Can I? Not Veolia. Don't worry. I'm terribly sorry. I've forgotten your name. What's your name?
Duncan Ravelli.
Duncan. Would you and Jill be able to get together on
yes,
this? Because it's obviously something
We
that.
have been sort of trying.
Yeah, well, let's.
all the way along.
I don't think we're going to get it sorted out tonight.
No,
But
I
think
just wanted to raise the point that we have actually made some progress.
But if Duncan's got £5,000, okay, and you've got, how far as you've got? No, forget the paint. Forget the paint. You've got as far as you've got. You've got obviously contacts, names, things like that. I'm sure that, with the will of both of you, you'll be able to achieve some great things together.
We'll be able to get on.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, the other thing is about the wall that's been collapsed.
Collapsed or taken down? Which one are you talking about?
Is this the bit in Suffolk Garden?
Windsor Avenue.
We've got free wall at the moment.
Okay, just before Jill starts, is everybody aware of this one?
No, I don't
Which
know.
Windsor Avenue, 29 Windsor Avenue.
The wall is in various different places, but
This is Priory
actually in some
Wall.
yes.
There is a part of the Priory Wall in a private garden in Windsor Avenue, and it's been there for 700 years or whatever. And the present resident has taken a lot of it down, and the flints were put into a skip outside his house, and the skip has gone.
The skip has gone. He was supposed to take the stuff out of the skip, and he hasn't. So it's, I'm talking to Historic England, which has been very difficult to speak to lately, and
Are they running out of money too?
Yes, they are.
but I've got these wonderful pictures that were given, that John brought over to me, but what I need from John is some more exact dates on them.
On the pictures, I've given you the dates that they are. I mean, they are years. They are years.
Yes.
I can't tell you whether it's November the 5th or whatever.
I just wondered whether
They demonstrate
still-
precisely what it was like in 2016, what it was like in 2017, what it was like in 2019, and there's a lot less of it now.
And I'm working with that, but if we end up in court about
I think again, something that you can take off the table. The important thing, Jill, is the work has been done. I'm very, very grateful to you, John, and I'm very, very grateful to Cyril, who brought it up as well, and to everybody who's got involved in this, because yes, it's tragic when bits of our heritage get deliberately got rid of.
I think, it is possibly a court matter, because this is actually not a local list, it is a national list. It's great, it's great,
Yes.
great indeed.
Yes.
It's equivalent offence.
But it's still down to us to carry it forward, unfortunately,
Yeah.
not Historic England.
Well, I really can't. I mean, David laughed at the photographs. He can't give. They aren't electronic photographs. He uses an old-fashioned camera, so they're not dated.
Don't worry. Well, I mean, it's the spirit of the thing, John. I mean, and I'm sure that any court would understand that. That's really important. Jill, anything else for you specifically?
No,
I've
that
got.
was the main things, because the other things were related to this.
Yeah. Well, what I'm going to suggest, actually, what I'm going to suggest, particularly in view of what we say elsewhere in the meeting, is that the two of you, between you, and I know that you work on very different sides of it, but the two of you are Merton's heritage. Okay? And from an officer point of view, and realistically, the more collaborative work that you achieve, the better it will be for Merton. So what I'd ask you to do from the chair is to take this away, talk to Sarah, work out what you can do, if there's anything that you can do in terms of joint strategy, because we are depending upon...
About you still meaning about the wall?
No, about
that. Well, yeah, I mean, that's the review of the strategies they're doing that anyway.
Indeed, indeed. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. From an officer point of view, it would be really good to be working together on that one. That's all I'd say on that one. That's, I think, is there anything else on Jill's, or any questions for Jill specifically?
I'm sorry, I'm a bit new to this, but I'm not quite clear. From what you're saying, I'm understanding that if a society or an organisation is offering to pay for something of heritage, that is a possibility?
Yeah.
Because that's not the experience of the John Innes Society. We have tried desperately to get some work done on our bandstand. And we have asked members of the council and been told that, I think he's going to back me up here, I hope. We have,
no, I'm just
going to shrink underneath the table. Brilliant, okay. We have been told that it isn't possible because the council can't organise it, or has to go out to tender, etc., etc. And we are flush with money, desperate to spend it. If we don't spend it, the charity commission comes down our head.
I tell you what, Alison, that's really good. You see, this is the sort of thing about bringing the council to account, quite frankly. You're lucky, I mean, to actually have one of your councillors here, okay? Yeah. And I know that the two of you will be very happy to work together. What I'd like to
I'm
know,
going to go away and read some emails.
I'd like to know from both of you,
yes,
okay, what the obstacles is, where the obstacle comes from. You're right, putting things out to tender, Alison, is a difficult thing.
Sorry, can I just interrupt, how much are we talking about?
Well, we don't quite know how much is involved because the hurdle is there.
Right, okay. Because obviously under 5,000 or 10,000, it doesn't have to go out to tender at all.
It does now. It does. It's very, very difficult.
Yeah, really difficult.
Really? That's interesting.
Now everything goes to tender now.
Really difficult.
Okay.
Yeah, but you can sort that. Not every. Well, it's a bigger issue.
Yeah. Anyway, okay. That's
other local authorities don't have that problem.
Yes. Yeah. It's a very.
But surely this only relates to.
Okay, we'll see where the obstacles are.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Well, this isn't. This is owned by the electricity company.
Well, this is the John Innes Park. This is a historic arts and crafts bandstand.
Okay, listen, I understand. Alison's made a very good point. Okay, if there are obstacles, I need to know what they are. Dickie, I'm relying on you to a certain extent on this. Okay, and I'll do my damnedest to get it past the cabinet member, past and get it working out, because it's historic. We don't want it falling apart for lack of bureaucratic reasons. We've heard that we can't afford the bureaucracy.
Yes.
What the hell is the point of actually increasing? That's my point of view. Anybody agree with me?
Yep. Well, I've also heard that the Merton Heritage Forum has raised more money in the last 5 minutes than it spent in the previous couple of years. So it's an income generating.
You're not going to do it. But it's a very, very good point. Thank you very much. Right. Okay. Anybody else on or around what Jill has been saying?
The priory wall, it sort of petered out and went into a bandstand. What's going to be done about it? That's really clear. I'm going back to the wall because it didn't come to a conclusion.
All right, it's very, very fair. What's happening is, this is a particular part of the wall which is in somebody's front garden. Okay.
Yes.
Jill has suggested, that we maybe have to have a legal case. The bits that have gone, we're just going to have to accept that they've gone. They ain't going to come back. Okay, it's wrong. It's sad. But in terms of making sure that the householder doesn't get rid of the rest of the wall, or attempting to do so, that is between in the first instance, John and Jill working out a precise timeline, or as near a precise timeline as is necessary, and then Jill, what do you do after that?
Well, we've opened an enforcement case on it.
Okay.
And
this is your answer.
And as I say, I'm trying to communicate with Historic England to get their support. I've sent all their photographs to them. But I've been having a little trouble communicating with them. So it's ongoing.
Right. Okay. It's not a conclusion. Sadly, I wish it were, but it is nevertheless. It's a start. Okay. And you've got two protagonists. I'm sorry to keep chucking this back at you. You've got two protagonists who are working together. Okay.
The gentleman who owns it has been dissuaded, we hope, from removing any more of it, but we can't be sure of it.
No, you could attempt to get an injunction.
Oh, right.
Well, that again is out of my hands.
Chairman, just to say...
Yes, Nick.
His excuse would always have been, oh, I didn't know, Gov.
Well, he knows now.
I know, but there are bits of that wall in other gardens down there, not as big. Well, I seem to remember one of Cyril's plans showed a little bunch all the way down the garden. The question is, do the other adjoining owners know that they're meant to be looking after these things and not when they look now?
Good point.
And if so, if not, whose job is it?
But surely when you buy a property, your solicitor will tell you you've got a grade 2
Well, ignorance is
listed
no
wall.
defence in
Not
law.
nowadays.
Oh, yes.
Ignorance is no defence in law anyway.
No, but the owner did say that he knew it was listed.
Yes, he did, and thrilled to have a listed thing in my garden.
Well, there you go. Right.
You're a special person.
The answer is that there's, and I think this might answer what you just said, Nick, which is a very good point. Is that there is effectively a test case coming up. You can see that happening, and there aren't that many households that have got pieces of this wall in it. Okay, and I'm sure that neighbour shall speak unto neighbour, and they don't want to go through the courts. It's a tragedy that this has happened. It's totally wrong.
Out of interest, what was the rationale that he gave for having done this?
Oh, it's just fallen down.
Before or after he started taking bits of it?
All right. Okay, I don't want us to talk about this infinitely, because we're doing really well actually. We've got it's only 8:10, and we've got time for a quick round the table. Any other business? I said quick. Okay, it's quite important. Geraldine, any other business?
Wimbledon Putney Commons Conservatives. I've got 150,000 of grant from Heritage Fund.
We'll have that. We'll have that.
For general use of improving the common. Nothing material, it's not actually covering a new building. It's purely considering how things should be reorganised and improved. Meeting tomorrow morning.
Is it a bureaucratic thing, or is it horticultural thing, or what do they want?
What's the catch?
Thank you very much.
What's the catch?
What's the catch? Brilliant. I'll read this out to the meeting. Okay.
It's the same consultants working on the Wonder Valley Region Park Trust, Nick, so let that fill you with joy.
Okay. Okay, Wimbledon and Putney Common Conservatives secures National Lottery grant. Today, Wimbledon and Putney Common Conservatives, in partnership with Wimbledon Windmill Museum, have received £126,000 grant from the National Lottery Heritage Fund for an exciting heritage project, Commons for the Next Generation, Green Space for All. Further development of the vision, based on the work carried out in 2017, help ensure the commons are protected, preserved and available. It will, yes, of course it will. Oh no, yes, sorry, yes.
Yeah, or take a photograph of it.
The project will enable work to be undertaken to better understand the... You're right. It's all...
difficult to see what it is. Yeah. There's a meeting tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Is that your only copy?
Yeah.
It is, but I'll photocopy that and then give it back.
Yeah, that's all right. We're not stealing it forever. We're not stealing it forever. Thank you very much for bringing that. It is, if we can turn it into something concrete, really exciting. Well, Well, we're looking for a new car park.
I just mentioned, talking all about care homes, etc. And occasionally, some years ago, I remember very quickly, the care home in Wimbledon, which had been the reason, and the mayor was reopening it, and he was there, everyone was enjoying themselves, except there's one woman in the corner who was completely oblivious to anything going on. And he went over to her with these gold chains and said, "Hello, do you know who I am?" And she said, "No, but ask the matron." She was
the old jokes of the old time. Right. And on that, Jill, anything else?
No.
Jim, John.
Just very briefly, we were open a little bit last year with our nice renovated chapter house. We've been open every Sunday from April to October, and we've had 3,250 visitors up till now. And the brief was to increase learning and access. That was really the whole purpose of the original Heritage Lottery Fund grant. And I think we're very pleased with the result. We'll be closed between November and March, during which more work will be done, and we're absolutely thrilled that we've actually got a community infrastructure levy grant of some £40,000+ to proceed with serious work, turning this into a venue specifically for a youth theatre project, and of course it'll be a venue for many other things as well. And this is always part of the plan to pave the place and to equip it with proper lighting, etc. We can't, of course, heat it. It's not a heatable space, being under a road. So there are limitations. It's really a summer place. And we'll open it again between April and October next year and thereafter. And I think if we can get all the work done, including the plumbing and drainage, it won't be a venue for anybody without somewhere to go to the loo.
Has the guy spoken to you?
I know, well...
I've just spoken to him today.
Today?
Yes.
Did he go red?
No.
He did what? He did when Marcus spoke to him.
It's all gone through legal. Sainsbury's agreed. They've agreed.
Geraldine, you are... Thank you. So that's great. We're all geared up to do it, and we close in 2 Sundays' time. We're all geared up to get the builders in and do it over the next 5 months. So it's marvellous. And when that's done, you know, we will have an excuse for sort of another relaunch.
Well, I tell you what. I tell you what. You know, if ever there was, I don't know, you'd call this your life work or whatever. But if ever there was something where, I mean, I know that Marcus and many other people have been, sort of been involved. You have been the driving spur for this, John, and I think it is utterly astounding. I think we're just giving Geraldine a round of applause. This man, really.
Everybody else who's helped me, my goodness sake.
I did mention that.
It is the whole thing really is. It's Sarah's watchword too. That we're talking. Our heritage really is our story, and I believe in that old phrase. We look backward to look forward, and that I think it's all about what happened here, and kids have got to know about this, and we're really sort of into an educational project as much as anything else with the chapter house. I really do. At the moment, I go and see these lumps of stone. What is it? Wonderful things like people coming and saying, "Do you mean Sainsbury's were allowed to knock the priory down?" I went back a little bit further than that.
Anyway, thank you very much indeed, John. Alison.
No, I can't follow John Hawkes.
I hope you will.
Bearing in mind your comments about the budget cuts, I just thought I might as well ask, is there any chance of the Lee Valley money coming back?
Sorry, what money?
The Lee Valley money.
The Lee Valley.
I mean, I believe that some of it does come back to us, but it's only by the agreement of the Lee Valley itself, and frankly, the amount that's coming back is puny, if any at all. So sorry about that, Nick.
Nothing.
Nothing. Have you enjoyed it, by the way?
Yes, very interesting. I'm just wondering myself how heritage actually applies to natural history. But I think it does, because there are little bits of nature left around by which are... I'm thinking of an oak tree which is possibly 200 years old.
Which one's that? Is that the one that's on the hill?
No, it's probably not on any list. At the junction with Church Lane and Langley Road in Merton Park. And it obviously predates the estate, John and Mrs. estate. And there must be other... I mean, the value of them is to see how man's activities created what was here hundreds of years ago. This is, I mean, probably the biggest area of that is Wimbledon Common.
Yeah.
That is what is called wood pasture, which is the most ancient form of land management, effectively. But there must be other areas around the borough. I mean, that oak tree will probably have a unique population of beetles or other insects, something like that. And it's something which, I mean, natural history societies and so on are below the surface. They don't, and very often they're crossed by boundaries. I mean, I just, yesterday evening I went up to the South London Botanical Institute to present some fungi to them for identification. They had 4 tables covered, of this size, covered in fungi, specimens of fungi, but they're outside the borough.
They're out, sorry?
They're outside the borough. They're not within the borough.
I'd say, good starting point, okay? We've got an officer, our agricultural officer, been here a long time, and if you've never met Dave, you ought to meet Dave. He's one of those people who, I think I shall never see a poem as lovely as a tree. He really does prefer trees to people. I don't think he'd object to me saying that. That's why I just said it. But I think he would be interested seriously in what you're saying, and you never know. You might actually get him involved in heritage as well, which would be great.
Can I say something as well, please?
Yes, please do.
You mentioned Wimbledon Common, of course, but don't forget we've got Mitcham Common, and then we've also got the historic lavender growing in Mitcham, and the lavender factories and the gardens and stuff like that, including a bit of opium thrown in the background. Opium production in Mitcham.
They used to put the lavender around the outside and grow the opium poppies in the middle, because that way people couldn't get the opium poppies. That was a really good catch.
I mean, it was a standard medicinal crop.
It was well sorted.
It was. I mean, you really showed
sought after, wasn't it?
But people used to nick it. That's the thing.
That's
why you put loads and loads of lectures.
To this day, I have naturally growing poppies on my allotment in Eastfields.
Oh right.
Yeah, they just, I let them come up and see. But they're the big opium poppies, the big ones, not the Flanders poppies.
Yeah.
They're the ones that will grow 5 feet high.
Well, now we know where all the opium on that happy note, I'm going to move us on. Thank you very much indeed for that. Anything from yourself?
Just 2 things. One, the Wandle Valley Forum, we've secured some funding, we believe, for the next 3 years for Wandle Fortnight. So the 12th to 27th of September next year, 2020, get your plans in now. So we'll be running our mini grant scheme with more money, but the grant's up to about £1,000, and we might be able to fund 1 or 2 sort of slightly larger, more exciting projects. Obviously, Merton is one of the 4 boroughs, which is sort of part of that. We will be launching within Mitcham Cricket Green Community and Heritage, a revised Cricket Green Charter by the end of the year. So in the 50th anniversary, which sets out, and we've engaged over 4,500 households in the process. Setting out how we think the area, the principles which should guide the future and change in the area. You may remember that the original Cricket Green Charter was the origin of the Canons project, for example, so it secured some very practical outcomes, as well as providing a framework for decisions on planning or green space management.
Thank you very much indeed. Najib?
Just a quick one. I'm working with a Future Merton, and also Cameron, which is a campaign for Real Ale, to have an Article 4 on the pubs in Merton. So hopefully later this year or early next year we'll have a whole list of pubs that will have an Article 4, and then I think we've got
Article 4,
which means that developers can't, or even the owner cannot suddenly decide to convert the pub into residential or offices.
They've done it in Wandsworth.
Yeah, so it's following on from what Wandsworth did on their pubs. We'll try and do the same thing in Merton.
Okay.
We have a celebratory pub crawl.
That's interesting.
Would you be including the ex-pubs, as they call them? I'm thinking particularly the Burton and the White Hart.
The list is being compiled, or has been compiled by Camera, so they've sent the list, which I have, and Future Merton have that, and we're going to go through those and then decide which ones are actually feasible.
The only question I'd ask is, what if the pub can't afford to keep going? Does it just close?
That's a very good question.
It's a serious one, because
It's just a mechanism for ensuring that there is a consent required to change things. So it's not a veto.
Fine. That's the answer. That's the answer I need. Thank you very much. I'm really looking forward to seeing something on that. Very great. Who have I got next? John.
Yeah, I'm a little bit worried about these impending cuts, which
So am I.
are inevitable. But that brings to mind meaningful enforcement, which we know is tricky already. Is it going to get even worse? But looking forward on there, is there anything that voluntary groups can actually do on their own patch to ensure the safeguard of heritage properties and areas?
The answer to the second part of that answer is yes, I'm sure there is. I can't tell you what those are at the moment. I haven't got a list to reel off the top of my head, but I'm sure there is. It's not beyond the wits of man.
Well, the problem actually is specific to something which was passed from enforcement to your desk, and that's actually how far it's gone. So that's where I see problems, probably internally here, of saying one thing and not actually pushing it through to you.
Okay.
So
well,
if we can get a stream going where...
First of all, you're going to have to do that between
Yeah.
yourself. Start that conversation up again. I would like to know what's going on, because yes, enforcement is very difficult. You're absolutely right, and enforcement doesn't get easier if you take money away from it. But the idea of local people becoming part of making sure that things don't get hurt, as long as you do it at no risk to your own safety, obviously, it's very dear to my heart. And so if we can get something going on that between the two of you, I want to know how that will go. All right? Dickie.
Yes, actually, just a quickie. Dorset Hall, I gather, is now under now has property guardians in it, so that should have secured it.
Sorry, but I missed the first bit.
Sorry, Dorset Hall on Kingston Road now has a property property guardians living in it, which means that it's a bit more secure and that there's people coming and going, and so less likely to get squatters and things like that. And also, just to add, a personal thanks to Sarah and to the John Ennis Society for allowing Merton Park Ward Residents Association to use Merton memory images and images from the archive at our 30th anniversary the other day. And it was actually an exhibition in here that prompted me to realise we were 30 years old. Otherwise I would never have done. So thank you for that, for allowing me to use those images, and they were very much appreciated and coup de that. And although I hadn't realised the generations, perhaps some of them were a bit older than I thought to remember as well. Yeah, it didn't go down too well. But thank you.
Okay, Duncan.
I just wondered from Sarah how the talk went today on coaches.
I don't know because I didn't actually deliver that. It was my colleague Michael Norman Smith, but I can find
I'm
out.
sorry I missed it, but I was just so busy.
He's usually very popular with his sort of big turnout, so hopefully that will come.
But just generally, those talks are really very good.
Right. Thank you very much for that. Joan, you've got 2 minutes.
Right, thank you. Thank you, Sarah. I'm looking forward to support you in your both projects. Thank you.
I don't believe it, we're ahead of schedule. Was there anything you wanted to add, Eve? Were you happy? Good. Thank you very much for photographing the meeting. I look forward to seeing it. Okay, thank you very much all. Oh God, Sarah, I'm so sorry.
Just one very, very quickly. This Saturday between 2 and 4:30, just to remind you, I have sent lots of emails and posts and videos, but just to remind you to spread the word that my colleagues from East Surrey Family History Society are doing a free workshop on family history and online resources. So if you're interested in tracing your family tree or want to have any sort of tips or guidance or advice on resources, archives, all that sort of thing, please come along. That will be up here on Saturday from 2 till 4:30.
Joan, do you want to put something in for Black History Month? Which happened at the beginning of this week?
Of course. Well, I think we have sent out quite a lot of information via Maureen and what's her name again? McCarthy, regarding the Black History event we have coming up on the 26th of this month in Palazzo. It will be hosting, Kiwanis International will be hosting a Black History this year, and therefore we'll be covering plus the youth centre, library and community centre. So it's more like a forum. And yes, please come if you can.
Great.
And it started at 11 and finishes at 5 o'clock.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, on that
this is the last one. I think we ought to give Nicholas a round of applause for his enthusiasm and brilliant chairmanship for all the meetings you've had us to. No, you've been an inspiring heritage man.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, okay, we're done. There you are. Who said I couldn't get a meeting finished by 8:30?